Hello, welcome to the Fair Deal Democrats podcast. Today's episode, I'm your host, Josh Kilroy. Today's episode, we're going to discuss a little bit about Gavin Newsom's impending campaign for President of the United States. He is not officially declared yet, but he will. He is clearly setting himself up for a run for president. Um, he's been on the national stage visibly challenging Donald Trump's policies, particularly the ICE raids that have been in Los Angeles and other parts of California. He's been doing the media circuit to raise his national profile. His social media account is actively trolling Donald Trump on a daily basis. And one of the things that he's been trying to do is to sort of moderate his image. He understands that a lot of people, particularly those who live in the center of the country, do not look kindly on a California liberal. That's not me. I love California liberals. I was a California liberal for years. But anyways, he is working very hard to increase his visibility and make himself more acceptable to the median Democratic primary voter. But the theme of today's episode, the conclusion of today's episode, I will say, is that Gavin Newsom will never be president of the United States. He's got some great advantages. I'll start by talking about that. He has been a moderately successful governor. California is obviously our biggest state. It is multi-ethnic in ways that very few other states, if any, are. He has successfully passed a number of groundbreaking housing proposals. So he's been active in sort of appeasing the abundance faction of the Democratic Party, of which the Fair Deal Democrats are part of that. So he has some real achievements. But he also has, and he's also, I will say, one of the most charismatic and commanding presences that I've seen. I saw him address a group of Democratic volunteers at a campaign event in March of 2024. And even though it was a friendly crowd, these were all Democratic activists. It was really quite impressive. You feel when he walks into a room. He's one of those people, and I'm sure he'll want to double down on this comparison. But he's one of those people like Bill Clinton, who commands any room that he's in. I wouldn't say it was quite Clinton-esque, but much more so than your average politician. He's got the charisma to be president, but he also has crippling negatives, and I think those negatives make it unlikely A, that he'll win the Democratic nomination, and B, even if he were to do that, unless he were running against a real stiff on the Republican side, it's hard to see him winning a national election. But hey, the Republicans have a lot of Trump wannabes who are quite mediocre. But Gavin Newsom will not get through the primary. I'll just tell you that right now. So he's got a number of issues. The biggest one, and just in terms of winning the Democratic primary, is that he doesn't have, what I would call a clear lane. He has governed as quite a progressive governor. A lot of what he did, much of his term was spent during the pandemic, during the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, and his agenda reflects all of that, and for good and for ill. And so it pushed his record to the left. He has tried again with housing and some other pro business legislation to sort of move to the moderate center of the party, and we'll see how that gets perceived. But the moderates in the Democratic Party are the African American voters. The white voters, they're the most progressive, ideologues within the party. So he would, if the party were an all-white party, which of course it would never be, but he could win the white voters in the Democratic Party. I do not see how he wins the African American voters in any significant number. So that's really the big crippling thing. And there are a number of reasons for that. And again, one goes back to his presentation. He is a white man's white man, just to put it quite colloquially. He does not have, while he has Clinton's charisma, he does not have, Clinton always had that sense that growing up poor in the South, that he understood aspects of African American life that other white politicians did not. Newsom has nothing like that. Second, um, he has personal peccadillos, and these are well known. And in California, these have been factored in for many years. But most notably, 20 years ago, he had an affair. He was in the process of divorcing his wife, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's now part of the MAGA movement and involved with the Trump family. But he had an affair with the wife of his campaign manager. And in some sense, that's really the betrayal that people hold him accountable for. It wasn't like, oh, he was on a long campaign trip on the road and, a starstruck campaign volunteer, it was late at night. It wasn't anything like that. He knew that he was harming people who were close to him. And he and the campaign manager's wife engaged in this relationship, and it did cause a lot of harm. The other thing is that the woman he had a relationship with was an employee of San Francisco, where Newsom was the mayor at the time. Now, like I said, so I mean, I knew right then I could never support him for anything. Like you've shown me who you are. But that he had already been a successful, had a successful term as mayor of San Francisco. He had already established a semi-national profile as a supporter of marriage equality. And sort of voters factored that in. They had known him for a long time, and they let it slip. And then over time, California voters, as he became lieutenant governor and now governor, it was always sort of one of many things. That is not the context that voters in South Carolina will have. Like I said, South Carolina in particular, early primary state, heavy African American voting population in the primary, much more socially conservative. This will be new information to somebody that they are just getting to know. And it will be one of those things that will weigh heavily against it, in my opinion. Secondly, there was the scandal of during the pandemic, he was strictly enforcing their face mask ban. Meanwhile, he was partying with the elite in Napa Valley in an event where nobody was wearing a face mask, and it could have been a super spreader event, but so he was caught with that, and that that had repercussions. But it goes right again to his mindset. In the middle of the pandemic, he was partying with the wealthiest elements of American society, which are, those are his true constituents, with utter disregard to the rules that he was strictly enforcing on everyone else. So, I think those will be sort of character issues that will weigh in on him. And the third thing is his policies, while many of them are great, and I support, like I said, the housing and other things that he's done, but he has a number of laws that he signed and promoted that I think do not will not play well outside of California. One, he signed a bill that basically made it impossible for law enforcement to arrest people engaged in street level prostitution. It was an anti loitering law. This was passed in 22. It was part of the um, activism in the wake of George Floyd's death. The sense was that these arrests for loitering um, tended to result in target African American women in particular, and that if we just ban that, it would promote fairer law enforcement. But what it has, whether it's done that or not, it seems unlikely. What it has done is it has made it impossible for law enforcement to police street level social disorder and the minor law breaking like prostitution. Um, and in cities like Los Angeles, where there is already this constant sense of social disorder, that bill has not helped, and that will be a hard bill to explain in Iowa and other Midwestern states. Um, so that's one thing. He had just this year he doubled down on funding for high-speed rail. Trump had cut some federal funding. The state of California came up with a funding plan that stabilizes billions of dollars for this project, a high speed rail line that goes from Los Angeles to San Francisco. And it guarantees funding through 2045. This project, I like the idea of high speed rail. I wish they could do it. They cannot do it. This will never, ever happen, no matter how much money they throw at it. They have had all sorts of issues. Consultants, thousands of consultants are getting rich off this project. The hope now is that they can complete one small leg that connects, I believe it's Bakersfield to Merced, two not small towns, but mid-sized cities at best. There is not enough consumer demand to make a high-speed rail connection between Bakersfield and Merced economically viable. And it's just been hard. It's hard to imagine how they would expand from that to get all the way from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Geez, I wish they could. I would love to do that trip. You know, if you could get to Los Angeles to San Francisco in 90 minutes, 2 hours by rail, you could bypass two dysfunctional airports. But really, that project's never going to happen. It's a debacle. Newsom should have disassociated himself with once he first was elected, but instead he has doubled down on that. The third thing, just three of another sort of series of bills that he signed that I think will come back to hurt him. California has a law where schools are allowed to socially transition students without telling parents, and in fact, actively deceiving parents in many cases. And the idea was that students suffering gender dysphoria were maybe in households that were not supportive of working through their gender dysphoria, and that the schools would be a place where they could do that. I hope that that's how that's working out. But what I will tell you absolutely is that in an era where distrust of government is at an all-time high, having a government agency, the schools, deceive parents is not the way to achieve equity for students with gender dysphoria. It just exacerbates this issue of trust. Really, Democrats should be working on a platform that promotes trust, and Gavin Newsom is not the face of that program. So there it is. So I think he doesn't have quite the right profile to win. B, I think he has character issues that will be relitigated if he runs for president to his detriment. And 3, he has I've mentioned 3 issues that I think will not play well nationally. There could be 3 dozen, right? And this will be fodder for endless campaign ads, both within the Democratic Party and if he were to win the Democratic nomination, ads for his Republican opponents. The Democrats, we are lucky. We are going to have some great candidates. Josh Shapiro is likely to run. Andy Bashar is likely to run. Potentially Gretchen Whitmer, although she's running into some issues, a topic for another day. We will have great candidates. Gavin Newsom will have the money up front to be competitive. He will have the media oxygen. But I just think the fundamentals of his candidacy are such that he will never be president of the United States. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.